Imagine a Roman emperor, clad in the armor of a gladiator, standing triumphantly over his fallen opponent in the heart of the Colosseum. The sun blazes down, casting long shadows across the blood-stained sand. The emperor's muscles ripple under the weight of his armor, his face a mask of determination and pride. This is not a scene from a myth or legend but a historical reality that once played out in ancient Rome. The crowd roars, a mix of awe and unease. Thousands of spectators, from the highest-ranking senators to the common citizens, are on their feet, their voices merging into a deafening cacophony. The air is thick with tension and excitement, as the people witness their ruler engaging in a brutal combat that was typically reserved for slaves and prisoners of war. This was no mere spectacle, it was a statement, a declaration of power and dominance. The emperor was not just a ruler by birthright, but a warrior who could hold his own in the most dangerous of arenas. This act blurred the lines between the divine and the mortal, the ruler and the ruled. This was Commodus, the emperor who dared to live out his fantasies in the most public arena imaginable. Born Lucius Aurelius Commodus, he was the son of the esteemed emperor Marcus Aurelius. Unlike his father, who was known for his philosophical inclinations and stoic demeanor, Commodus was drawn to the thrill of the gladiatorial games. But how did a man born into such power descend into a world of perceived madness and bloodlust? Commodus's reign marked a significant departure from the traditions of his predecessors. His obsession with the gladiatorial games was not just a personal indulgence but a reflection of his desire to break free from the constraints of his imperial role. He saw himself as Hercules reincarnated, a demigod destined to rule both the political and the physical realms. To understand Commodus, we must first journey back to his beginnings. Born into the purple, he was groomed from a young age to take on the mantle of leadership. However, the pressures of living up to his father's legacy and the intoxicating allure of absolute power began to shape his psyche in unexpected ways. Join us as we delve deeper into the life of Commodus, exploring the events that led him to become one of the most controversial figures in Roman history. Born in 161 AD, Commodus was the son of Marcus Aurelius, one of Rome's most revered philosopher-emperors. His lineage was impressive. He could trace his ancestry back to the Antonine Dynasty, known for its stability and benevolent rule. Marcus Aurelius, a practitioner of Stoicism, instilled in his writings the importance of virtue, reason, and duty. He envisioned a Rome governed by wisdom and justice. The contrast between father and son couldn't have been more striking. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-king, sought to lead by example, embodying the Stoic ideals he cherished. Commodus, on the other hand, seemed to reject his father's teachings. He developed a fascination with the gladiatorial games and a thirst for absolute power that would ultimately lead him down a dark path. Our understanding of Commodus is largely shaped by the writings of historians like Cassius Dio and Herodian. However, it's crucial to remember that these accounts were often written after Commodus's death, and were likely influenced by the political climate of the time. The victors, as they say, write the history. Therefore, separating fact from fiction, particularly when it comes to controversial figures like Commodus, requires careful consideration. Faustina the Younger, Commodus's mother, was a woman of great influence and ambition. She was the daughter of Emperor Antoninus Pius, and had played a significant role in securing her husband's claim to the throne. The couple had several children, but tragedy struck early on, and only Commodus and his twin brother survived infancy. The death of his twin undoubtedly had an impact on the young Commodus. Section 6. An unexpected inheritance. In 177 AD, at the tender age of 16, Commodus became co-emperor with his father. This was an unusual move, as Marcus Aurelius had other options for succession. Some historians speculate that he might have felt compelled to secure the lineage after the death of his other sons. Whatever the reason, this decision would have profound consequences for Rome. Section 7. Descent into excess. With his father's death in 180 AD, Commodus became the sole ruler of Rome. Commodus, the son of the esteemed Marcus Aurelius, inherited an empire that was vast and powerful. However, unlike his father, who was known for his philosophical wisdom and dedication to duty, Commodus had a very different vision for his reign. His ascension to the throne marked the beginning of a dramatic shift in the leadership of Rome. Almost immediately, he began to deviate from his father's policies. Marcus Aurelius had spent his life working to secure the borders of the empire and maintain stability within. Commodus, however, showed little interest in these matters. He dismissed many of his father's trusted advisors and replaced them with sycophants who would cater to his whims. The Senate, once a powerful body of governance, found itself increasingly sidelined and ignored. He neglected the affairs of state, preferring to indulge in his passions for gladiatorial combat, chariot racing, and other forms of entertainment. Commodus fancied himself a great gladiator and often participated in the games, much to the horror of the Roman elite. His obsession with these spectacles was not just a personal indulgence but a public display of his power and dominance. The arenas, once places of sport and spectacle, became stages for his ego, and extravagant displays of wealth. Commodus hosted lavish banquets that were the talk of the empire, featuring exotic foods, elaborate entertainment, and opulent decorations. These events were designed to showcase his wealth and power, but they also drained the empire's coffers. The common people who once revered the emperor began to see him as a tyrant who cared more for his own pleasures than for the welfare of Rome. His reign was marked by paranoia, assassinations, and a constant fear of betrayal. Commodus's erratic behavior and ruthless actions created a climate of fear and suspicion. He executed many of his perceived enemies, including senators, generals, and even members of his own family. The once stable political environment of Rome descended into chaos, with plots and conspiracies becoming the order of the day, and a growing disconnect between the emperor and his people. As Commodus became more isolated in his luxurious palace, the people of Rome grew increasingly discontented. The gap between the emperor and his subjects widened, leading to unrest and rebellion. The once great empire began to crumble from within, setting the stage for the eventual decline of Rome. Commodus's reign serves as a stark reminder of how absolute power can corrupt absolutely, leading to the downfall of even the mightiest of empires. Section 8, The Fall of a God. Commodus's eccentricities grew more pronounced over time. He declared himself a living god, styling himself after Hercules, and demanded to be worshipped as such. He renamed Rome Colonia Commodiana, the colony of Commodus, and even renamed the months of the year after himself. His actions alienated the Senate and the Praetorian Guard, who had once been sworn to protect him. Section 9, Rome's Enduring Legacy. Commodus's reign, though short-lived, left an indelible mark on Roman history. Born in 161 AD, Commodus was the son of the esteemed emperor Marcus Aurelius, a philosopher-king whose rule was marked by wisdom and restraint. Commodus, however, was a stark contrast to his father. His reign began in 180 AD, and from the outset, it was clear that his approach to leadership would be vastly different. While Marcus Aurelius was known for his stoic philosophy and dedication to duty, Commodus was infamous for his hedonistic lifestyle and erratic behavior. His excesses and tyrannical tendencies served as a stark reminder of the fragility of power and the potential for even the most promising of beginnings to end in disaster. Commodus's obsession with gladiatorial combat, where he often participated himself, was seen as a disgrace to the imperial office. He fancied himself as Hercules reincarnated, going so far as to commission statues of himself dressed as the mythical hero. His reign was also marked by political purges, where many senators and officials who opposed him met untimely deaths. The once stable Roman Empire began to show signs of decay under his rule, with corruption and mismanagement becoming rampant. But was Commodus truly the monster history often portrays him to be? Some historians argue that his actions, while extreme, were not entirely without reason. The pressures of ruling an empire as vast and diverse as Rome were immense, and Commodus was thrust into this role at a young age. His father's death left a void that Commodus struggled to fill, and his erratic behavior could be seen as a response to the overwhelming expectations placed upon him. Additionally, the sources that depict Commodus in such a negative light were often written by his political enemies, who had much to gain from tarnishing his legacy. Or was he a victim of circumstance, thrust into a position he was ill-prepared to handle? The Roman Senate, which had enjoyed a relatively cooperative relationship with previous emperors, found Commodus's approach to governance unpredictable and threatening. His decision to rename Rome after himself and declare himself the new founder of the city was seen as an affront to Roman tradition and pride. Yet, some argue that these actions were attempts to solidify his authority and leave a lasting mark on history, albeit in a misguided manner. These are questions that continue to fascinate and intrigue historians to this day. The complexity of Commodus's character and reign offers a rich field of study, with new interpretations and insights emerging as scholars delve deeper into ancient texts and archaeological findings. Was he a mad tyrant, a misunderstood ruler, or a bit of both? The debate continues, highlighting the enduring allure of Roman history and its figures. Commodus's reign, though often overshadowed by his father's, remains a pivotal chapter in the story of Rome, illustrating the delicate balance between power, legacy, and human nature. Join us next time as we delve deeper into the annals of Roman history, exploring the lives and legacies of the men and women who shaped one of the greatest empires the world has ever known. From the legendary founders Romulus and Remus to the influential leaders like Julius Caesar and Augustus, each figure contributed to the rich tapestry of Rome's history. We'll uncover the stories of the unsung heroes, the everyday citizens, and the monumental events that defined an era. Stay tuned for more captivating tales from the heart of the ancient world. He dreamt of the roar of the crowd, the clash of steel, the stench of blood and sweat. He craved the adulation, the power, the life-or-death drama of the arena. He was Rome's emperor. He was also Rome's shame. His name was Commodus, and history remembers him as the emperor who traded the purple robes of power for the brutal glory of a gladiator. Commodus's story isn't just about one man's descent into madness. It's a cautionary tale of power unchecked, ambition gone awry, and the fragility of even the mightiest empires. It's a story of how quickly a golden age can crumble into dust. Before we can understand Commodus's fall, we need to understand what he destroyed. The Roman Empire at its zenith was a marvel of human achievement and ambition. The Roman Empire of the 2nd century AD, under the rule of the Nerva-Antonine dynasty, was a force to be reckoned with. This dynasty, often referred to as the Five Good Emperors, brought a period of unprecedented stability and prosperity to Rome. For almost a century, Rome had enjoyed relative peace and prosperity. The empire's borders were secure, its economy was thriving, and its culture was flourishing. Art, literature, and architecture reached new heights, and the Roman legal system became a model for future civilizations. This wasn't the Rome of constant conquest and brutal expansion. Instead, it was a Rome that had learned to govern its vast territories with a mix of military might and diplomatic skill. The legions, though still formidable, were more often used to maintain peace than to wage war. This was a Rome of stability, of cultural achievement, of a vast empire seemingly at peace with itself. The construction of grand public works, such as aqueducts and theaters, showcased the empire's engineering prowess and commitment to public welfare. But like all golden ages, it was built on a foundation of blood and iron. The peace and prosperity of the Nerva-Antonine era were secured through the strength of the Roman military and the political acumen of its leaders. And like all human endeavors, it was susceptible to the flaws and failings of the men who ruled it. The very qualities that made the empire great also made it vulnerable to corruption, decadence, and the ambitions of those who sought power for themselves. The Nerva-Antonine dynasty boasted some of Rome's most capable emperors. Trajan, the soldier emperor, expanded the empire to its greatest territorial extent, pushing its borders to the limits of the known world. Hadrian, the builder, consolidated those gains, focusing on infrastructure and defense, leaving behind an indelible mark on the empire's landscape. And then there was Antoninus Pius, the administrator, who ruled during a time of unprecedented peace and prosperity. He was the adoptive father of Marcus Aurelius and the grandfather of Commodus. These were big sandals to fill. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, cast a long shadow over his son. Here was a man who embodied stoic ideals, who wrote meditations on duty and virtue, who led his legions against barbarian hordes on the empire's frontiers. Commodus, on the other hand, seemed to embody everything his father despised: vanity, self-indulgence, and a thirst for cheap glory. The contrast was stark, and it was a contrast that would have deadly consequences for Rome. Whispers followed Commodus from birth. Was he truly the son of Marcus Aurelius, or was his mother, Faustina the Younger, involved in a scandalous affair? Some historians pointed to Commodus's physical appearance, his blonde hair and fair skin, so unlike the dark features of his supposed father. Others whispered of Faustina's rumored infidelities, of liaisons with gladiators and charioteers. Whether true or not, the rumors of Commodus's illegitimacy added another layer of complexity to his already strained relationship with his father and cast a shadow over his claim to the throne. The reign of madness, from emperor to gladiator. Commodus, the son of the esteemed Marcus Aurelius, began his rule with a glimmer of hope and potential. The empire, weary from years of conflict, looked to him for stability and peace. Commodus's reign began with promise. He was young, charismatic, and seemed to possess the qualities of a great leader. The people of Rome were optimistic, believing that he would usher in a new era of prosperity. He negotiated peace with the barbarian tribes that plagued his father's later years. These negotiations were seen as a masterstroke, a sign that Commodus had the diplomatic skills necessary to maintain the empire's borders and ensure its security, and seemed poised to continue the Antonine dynasty's legacy. The Antonines were known for their wisdom and fair governance, and there was hope that Commodus would follow in their footsteps, bringing honor to his family name. But the promise was short-lived. As the years went by, the pressures of ruling an empire began to weigh heavily on Commodus. The initial optimism faded, replaced by a growing sense of unease and disillusionment. Consumed by paranoia and obsessed with his own image, Commodus descended into tyranny. His behavior became increasingly erratic, and he started to see enemies everywhere, even among his closest advisors and allies. He ruled through fear and intimidation, executing rivals. Anyone who dared to oppose him or question his authority was swiftly dealt with, often in brutal and public ways, to serve as a warning to others, and surrounding himself with sycophants. His eccentricities grew stranger, and his court became a place of intrigue and deception, where flattery and loyalty were the only currencies that mattered. His grip on reality more tenuous. Commodus began to lose touch with the world around him, retreating into a fantasy where he was the center of the universe, a god among men. He renamed Rome after himself, a move that shocked and bewildered the populace. This act of hubris was seen as the ultimate sign of his detachment from reality and his growing megalomania. Declared himself a living god, demanding worship and adoration from his subjects. Temples were erected in his honor, and he expected to be treated with the reverence reserved for the divine, and most infamously took to the arena as a gladiator. This was not the noble combat of legend, but a grotesque spectacle designed to feed his ego and entertain the masses. This wasn't the noble combat of legend. Commodus rigged the fights, battling wounded animals and hapless opponents, ensuring his victory and basking in the adulation of the crowd, reveling in the cheers of a crowd who dared not do anything but applaud. The people, fearful of his wrath, played along with his delusions, creating a facade of support and admiration. Rome in ruins, the price of a madman's rule. While Commodus played gladiator, Rome burned. His neglect of his duties, his extravagant spending, and his reign of terror plunged the empire into chaos. The economy faltered. Corruption flourished. The army, once the backbone of the empire, became demoralized and undisciplined. The seeds of Rome's decline, planted long before Commodus, were now watered with the blood of his victims and fertilized by his incompetence. Legacy of blood, the end of an era. In the end, Commodus's own paranoia proved to be his undoing. Fearing a plot against his life, he was assassinated in 192 AD, strangled in his bath by his wrestling partner Narcissus. His death marked the end of the Nerva-Antonine dynasty and plunged the Roman Empire into a period of civil war, known as the Year of the Five Emperors. Commodus's reign, though short, had a lasting impact. He left behind a weakened empire ripe for exploitation, and a legacy of tyranny that would forever tarnish the memory of the Antonine dynasty. What if? A history left unwritten. Imagine a world where the pivotal moments of our past took a different turn, where the decisions of a few could alter the fate of millions. History is a tapestry woven with countless threads, each representing a choice, a chance, a change. But what if we could pull on one of those threads and see where it leads? But what if things had turned out differently? What if the choices made by those in power had been guided by wisdom rather than ambition, by foresight rather than folly? What if Commodus had embraced his father's teachings instead of his own vanity? Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-king, left behind a legacy of wisdom and virtue. His son Commodus, however, chose a path of self-indulgence and tyranny. What if he had been a wise and just ruler instead of a tyrant? Imagine a Rome where the Senate was respected, where justice prevailed, and where the emperor ruled with a fair hand. Could he have extended Rome's golden age, perhaps even averted the decline that followed? We can only speculate. The Rome of Commodus could have been a beacon of progress and stability, a shining example for future generations. History, as they say, is written by the victors. But what if the victors had been different? What if the battles fought and the strategies planned had led to a more prosperous and enduring empire? And in the end, Commodus was anything but a victor. His reign marked the beginning of Rome's decline, a period of chaos and instability that would eventually lead to the fall of one of history's greatest empires. He was a cautionary tale, a reminder that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. His story serves as a warning to all who seek power without understanding the responsibility it entails. And sometimes, the greatest threat to an empire comes not from its enemies outside, but from the madness within. The story of Commodus is a stark reminder that the seeds of destruction are often sown from within, and that the true test of leadership lies in the ability to rise above personal ambition for the greater good. What if I told you that one of the most stable periods in Roman history was ruled not by a single dynasty of blood, but by a series of adopted sons? This, in essence, is the story of the Nerva-Antonine dynasty, a remarkable chapter in Roman history that challenged the very notion of imperial succession. From 96 to 180 AD, Rome flourished under the rule of 5 emperors, each carefully chosen not by blood, but by merit. This period, known as the Pax Romana, saw an unprecedented era of peace and prosperity. But the story of the Nerva-Antonine dynasty is not just about political stability. It is a story of fathers and sons, of ambition and duty, and of the delicate balance between power and virtue. The dynasty's founder, Nerva, was an aging senator with no direct heir. He was a man of wisdom and experience, having served Rome in various capacities throughout his life. His ascension to the throne was not through ambition, but necessity. He had ascended to the throne after the assassination of the much-despised Domitian, the last of the Flavian emperors. Domitian's rule had been marked by tyranny and fear, leaving the Roman populace yearning for a change. Rome was in turmoil, and Nerva needed to act swiftly to secure his power and prevent another civil war. The Senate was divided and the people were restless. Nerva's primary goal was to stabilize the empire and restore confidence in the leadership. He made the unprecedented decision to formally adopt Trajan, a popular general, as his son and heir. Trajan was not just a military man, he was also known for his administrative skills and his ability to connect with the common people. This act of adoption was a radical departure from traditional Roman inheritance practices, which heavily favored bloodlines. By choosing Trajan, Nerva was prioritizing merit and capability over lineage, a move that would set a new standard for future emperors. Nerva's decision was a gamble, but it paid off. The adoption was well received by both the military and the Senate, ensuring a smooth transition of power. This strategic move not only secured Nerva's position, but also laid the groundwork for a more stable and prosperous empire. Trajan was a skilled soldier and administrator, and his reign marked the beginning of a golden age for Rome. His military campaigns expanded the empire's borders, bringing wealth and resources back to Rome. His leadership in battle was matched by his governance at home. He expanded the empire's borders to their greatest extent, oversaw massive building projects, and established himself as a fair and just ruler. His contributions to Roman architecture and infrastructure were monumental, leaving a lasting legacy that can still be seen today. But perhaps his most important legacy was continuing Nerva's precedent of adopting for merit. This practice ensured that the most capable individuals would lead Rome, ushering in an era of stability and growth that would be remembered for generations. The emperors who followed Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, and Marcus Aurelius were all adopted heirs. This was a significant departure from the traditional hereditary succession that many other empires followed. Instead of relying on the accident of birth, these emperors sought out individuals who demonstrated exceptional qualities and capabilities. They were chosen not because they shared the same bloodline, but because they possessed the qualities that made them suitable rulers. This method of selecting leaders was not only innovative but also highly effective in maintaining stability and prosperity within the empire. They were chosen not because they shared the same bloodline but because they possessed the qualities that made them suitable rulers. The Roman Senate and other influential bodies played a crucial role in this process, ensuring that the chosen successors were well vetted and capable of handling the immense responsibilities of leadership. This system of adoption allowed for a more meritocratic approach to governance, where the best and brightest could rise to the top, regardless of their familial connections. These emperors looked beyond familial ties and chose successors based on their character, intellect, and ability to govern. They understood that the future of the empire depended on the competence and vision of its leaders. By prioritizing these qualities, they were able to cultivate a line of rulers who were not only capable, but also deeply committed to the well-being of the empire and its citizens. This approach to succession, revolutionary for its time, ensured that the empire was led by capable men who had proven their worth. It was a forward-thinking strategy that helped to secure the empire's future. By focusing on merit and ability, rather than birthright, the Roman Empire was able to maintain a high standard of leadership, which in turn contributed to its longevity and success. The adoption system had a profound impact on the political landscape of Rome. It created a more stable and predictable line of succession, reducing the likelihood of power struggles and internal conflicts. This stability was crucial for the continued growth and prosperity of the empire, allowing it to focus on external threats and opportunities rather than being consumed by internal strife. It helped to minimize the risk of power struggles and civil wars that had plagued the empire in previous centuries. By having a clear and well-respected process for selecting successors, the empire was able to avoid many of the pitfalls that had previously led to periods of chaos and decline. This system of adoption was a key factor in the empire's ability to maintain its dominance and influence over such a vast territory. The emperors were not beholden to the whims of ambitious relatives or the intrigues of the Praetorian Guard. This independence allowed them to make decisions that were in the best interests of the empire as a whole, rather than being swayed by personal or familial agendas. It also helped to prevent the kind of corruption and favoritism that could undermine the effectiveness of their rule. They were free to rule in the best interests of the empire and its people. This freedom was a critical component of their success, enabling them to implement policies and reforms that promoted the common good. By prioritizing the needs of the empire over personal gain, these adopted emperors were able to leave a lasting legacy of strong and effective leadership. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, stands as a testament to the effectiveness of this unique system of succession. His reign is often cited as the epitome of the philosopher-king ideal, a ruler who governed with wisdom and virtue. Adopted by Antoninus Pius at the behest of Hadrian, Marcus was groomed from a young age for the responsibilities of leadership. This adoption was not merely a formality, it was a deliberate and strategic move to ensure the stability and continuity of the Roman Empire. Imagine the young Marcus Aurelius surrounded by scrolls in the imperial palace, his tutor patiently explaining the intricacies of Roman law and governance. These lessons were not just about memorizing laws but understanding the principles behind them, the philosophy that underpinned Roman society. He was instilled with the values of Stoic philosophy, which emphasized virtue, duty, and service to the state. Stoicism taught him to remain calm in the face of adversity, to act with integrity, and to prioritize the common good over personal gain. His education was not merely academic, it was a practical apprenticeship in leadership. He learned to make decisions, to lead troops, and to manage the vast bureaucracy of the Roman Empire. This hands-on experience was crucial in preparing him for the immense responsibilities he would later shoulder. Antoninus Pius, a shrewd and capable ruler in his own right, played a crucial role in shaping Marcus Aurelius into the emperor he would become. He led by example, demonstrating the importance of patience, wisdom, and a steady hand in governance. He instilled in his adopted son a deep sense of duty, a love for justice, and a profound understanding of the burdens of power. These lessons were not just theoretical, they were lived experiences, shared through countless hours of discussion and observation. Marcus Aurelius, in his own writings, reflected on the lessons he learned from his adoptive father, praising Antoninus Pius for his wisdom, patience, and unwavering commitment to the welfare of Rome. These reflections, captured in his meditations, offer a window into the mind of a ruler who sought to balance the demands of power with the principles of Stoic philosophy. Marcus Aurelius's reign, however, also exposed the potential pitfalls of the adoptive system. While he himself had been a shining example of a carefully chosen heir, his own son Commodus proved to be a stark contrast. Could the virtues that had defined the Nerva-Antonine dynasty be passed on through blood after all? The weight of this question must have pressed heavily on Marcus Aurelius as he watched his son grow. Commodus, unlike his father, was more interested in gladiatorial combat and extravagant displays of power than in the affairs of state. Despite his best efforts to mold Commodus into a worthy successor, Marcus Aurelius's hopes for a continuation of the adoptive system ultimately failed. The implications of this failure were significant, for Commodus's reign would mark a turning point in Roman history. The cracks in this seemingly flawless system began to show with Marcus Aurelius's decision to break with tradition and name his son Commodus as his heir. This was a fateful decision that cast a long shadow over the achievements of the Nerva-Antonine dynasty. Was it simply paternal love that clouded Marcus Aurelius's judgment, or was it the subtle pressure of dynastic tradition reasserting itself? Whatever the reason, Commodus's ascension to the throne marked a stark departure from the principles of meritocratic selection that had defined the previous reigns. His rule was characterized by excess, cruelty, and a disregard for the responsibilities of leadership. The stability that had been so carefully cultivated by his predecessors began to crumble. The Nerva-Antonine dynasty, despite its many successes, also raises important questions about the nature of power and the challenges of maintaining a stable and just society. The Pax Romana, for all its glory, was built on a foundation of military expansion and the exploitation of conquered peoples. Was this a price worth paying for peace and prosperity? Furthermore, the reliance on a small group of elite families to provide emperors, even through adoption, highlighted the limitations of Roman political thought. Could a system that excluded the vast majority of the population from power ever be truly just? Despite its eventual downfall, the Nerva-Antonine dynasty left an indelible mark on Roman history and beyond. The period of the 5 good emperors stands as a testament to the potential of wise leadership and the benefits of a stable political system. Their achievements in law, architecture, and governance influenced Western civilization for centuries. The emperors of this dynasty, with their emphasis on merit, justice, and the common good, offered a powerful counterpoint to the excesses and abuses of power that had characterized many earlier Roman rulers. Their example continued to inspire thinkers and leaders throughout history, offering a vision of a more just and equitable world. The Nerva-Antonine dynasty offers a tantalizing glimpse into what might have been. What if Marcus Aurelius had chosen a different path, adhering to the principles of adoption over blood? Could the Roman Empire have avoided the turmoil and decline that followed Commodus's reign? These questions, of course, can never be definitively answered. However, they serve as a reminder that even the most enduring empires are built on fragile foundations, and that the choices of individual leaders can have profound and lasting consequences. Commodus. The name echoes through history, synonymous with tyranny and excess. But what forged this Roman emperor, this ruler destined to become a byword for cruelty? Was he born wicked, or did the circumstances of his life, his upbringing, and his education mold him into the monster history remembers? One thing is certain. Commodus possessed a profound aversion to the structured world of education. While other children of his status eagerly absorbed knowledge, Commodus recoiled. Books held no allure for him, philosophy bored him, the intricacies of statesmanship seemed tedious and dull. He possessed a restless spirit, one that chafed against the confines of the classroom and yearned for the freedom of the arena. This disdain for traditional learning would have a profound impact on Commodus's reign. It would shape his decisions, fuel his insecurities, and ultimately contribute to his downfall. To understand Commodus the emperor, we must first understand Commodus the student, a boy who rejected the very knowledge that could have saved him. His disdain for learning was not just a personal quirk but a defining trait that influenced his every action. This aversion to education created a ruler who was ill-prepared for the complexities of leadership, a man who preferred the simplicity of brute force over the nuanced strategies of governance. Commodus's story is a cautionary tale of how the rejection of knowledge can lead to a legacy of infamy. Despite Commodus's resistance, his father, the Emperor Marcus Aurelius, remained determined to provide him with a proper education. Marcus Aurelius, a philosopher-king, believed that a strong foundation in knowledge and virtue was essential for any ruler. He envisioned his son as a future leader who would uphold the values of wisdom, justice, and temperance. He entrusted this crucial task to 3 esteemed individuals: Pythalas, Antistius Capella, and Ateus Sanctus. These men were not just scholars, they were paragons of their respective fields, chosen specifically for their expertise and moral integrity. Each man brought a unique skill set to the table, their combined wisdom intended to mold the young prince into a wise and capable ruler. They were tasked with the monumental responsibility of shaping the mind and character of the future emperor. Pythalos, a renowned rhetorician, was tasked with honing Commodus's oratory skills. His lessons were designed to teach the young prince the art of persuasive speech, a crucial skill for any leader. Imagine the frustration of a man trained to weave words into tapestries of eloquence, struggling to capture the attention of a student more interested in gladiatorial combat than Cicero. Pythalos's eloquent speeches often fell on inattentive ears, as Commodus's mind wandered to the thrill of the arena. Antistius Capella, a respected grammarian, carried the burden of instilling in Commodus a love for literature and language. He introduced the young prince to the works of great poets and writers, hoping to ignite a passion for the written word. His efforts, however, seemed to fall on deaf ears, for Commodus's heart lay elsewhere, captivated by the roar of the crowd, not the rhythm of prose. The allure of the amphitheater overshadowed the beauty of literature. Finally, there was Ateus Sanctus, a distinguished philosopher charged with nurturing Commodus's moral compass and instilling in him the stoic principles that guided his father's reign. Sanctus's teachings emphasized the importance of virtue, self-control, and rationality. Yet the seeds of wisdom seemed to find no purchase in the young prince's heart. Despite Sanctus's best efforts, Commodus remained indifferent to the Stoic ideals that had shaped his father's philosophy. Commodus, it seemed, was destined to chart his own course, one far removed from the path of virtue and reason laid out by his tutors. His destiny was to follow a different path, one that would lead him away from the scholarly pursuits and moral teachings of his youth. While his tutors toiled in vain, Commodus found solace and excitement in pursuits deemed unworthy of a future emperor. He gravitated towards physical prowess, spending countless hours honing his skills in the gymnasium. Wrestling, hunting, archery, these were the pursuits that ignited his passion, not the dry and dusty scrolls that lay neglected in his chambers. The world of gladiatorial combat held a particular allure for the young prince. He was captivated by the raw power of the gladiators, their fearlessness in the face of death, the adulation of the crowds. He saw in them a reflection of his own desires, a yearning for glory and recognition, an escape from the suffocating expectations of his birthright. Commodus's fascination with the arena would later become an obsession, one that would scandalize Rome and contribute to his downfall. But in these early years it was simply a manifestation of his untamed spirit, a rebellion against the gilded cage of his upbringing. Even in his youth, there were glimpses of the ruthlessness that would come to define Commodus's reign. His actions, even as a child, hinted at the darker aspects of his personality that would later manifest in more severe and terrifying ways. One particular incident, recounted by the historian Cassius Dio, offers a chilling foreshadowing of the emperor to come. This story, though brief, encapsulates the essence of Commodus's future tyranny and his capacity for cruelty. The story goes that while still a young boy, Commodus was enjoying a bath when he discovered that the water had turned cold. This seemingly minor inconvenience would trigger a reaction that was anything but minor. Enraged by this perceived inconvenience, he flew into a violent rage. His temper, unchecked and fierce, was a clear indication of his inability to tolerate even the slightest discomfort. He demanded to know who dared to disrespect him in such a manner. His sense of entitlement and expectation of absolute obedience were already deeply ingrained. When the terrified slave responsible for tending the bath admitted his fault, Commodus's reaction was swift and brutal. The young boy's response was not just anger, but a desire to punish severely. He ordered the unfortunate man thrown into the furnace that heated the baths, a sentence carried out with horrifying efficiency. This act was not just a punishment, but a demonstration of his power and a warning to others. This act of extreme cruelty, disproportionate to the offense, sent shockwaves through the imperial household. It was a moment that many would remember, a dark omen of the future. It served as an early warning sign, a glimpse into the dark heart of the boy who would one day rule Rome. His cold and calculating nature was already evident, even at such a young age. While some dismissed it as the impetuousness of youth, others saw it as a chilling portent of the darkness to come. The debate over his character would continue, but the seeds of his future tyranny were already sown. Commodus's path to sole heir was not preordained. He had an older twin brother, Annius Verus, who shared the title of Caesar, and was initially favored to succeed their father. However, fate, it seemed, had other plans. In 169 AD, at the tender age of 7, Annius Verus died following a surgical procedure. The loss of his twin deeply affected Commodus, but it also dramatically altered the course of his life. With Annius gone, Commodus was now the sole focus of Marcus Aurelius's dynastic ambitions, the last hope for the continuation of his lineage. This sudden shift in circumstance placed an immense burden on Commodus's young shoulders. It also perhaps contributed to the sense of entitlement and lack of accountability that would later characterize his reign. Section 6. Securing the Dynasty, Marcus Aurelius's plans for Commodus. With the death of Annius, Marcus Aurelius dedicated himself to securing Commodus's future as emperor. He bestowed upon his son a series of titles and honors, each one a carefully calculated step in legitimizing his claim to the throne. At the age of 5, Commodus was granted the title of Caesar, a clear indication of his position as heir apparent. 2 years later, he was awarded the victory title Germanicus, associating him with Roman military triumphs despite his young age. Marcus Aurelius also incorporated Commodus into the fabric of Roman governance. He brought his son to Senate meetings, exposed him to matters of state, and even took him along on military campaigns. These efforts, while well-intentioned, may have inadvertently fueled Commodus's impatience and disdain for the intricacies of ruling. Section 7. From Classroom to Battlefield, the Making of an Emperor. In a further attempt to prepare Commodus for rulership, Marcus Aurelius exposed him to the realities of military life. Commodus accompanied his father on campaigns against the Germanic tribes, witnessing firsthand the brutality and chaos of war. However, these experiences, rather than instilling in Commodus a sense of duty and responsibility, seemed to have the opposite effect. He reportedly showed more interest in the spectacles of camp life, the gladiatorial contests, the lavish banquets, than in the strategic complexities of warfare. This period in Commodus's life highlights the inherent contradiction of his upbringing. His father, a man of contemplation and stoic virtue, sought to mold his son in his image. Yet, by exposing Commodus to the allure of power without the necessary grounding in responsibility, he may have inadvertently nurtured the very traits that would lead to his son's downfall. Section 8. The Legacy of a Troubled Mind. Commodus's Ascent to Power. In 180 AD, Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, died, leaving the fate of Rome in the hands of his son. Commodus, now 18 years old, ascended to the throne, his mind a battleground of conflicting influences. On one hand, he was the product of a privileged upbringing, showered with titles and responsibilities from a young age. He had witnessed firsthand the workings of empire, albeit through a lens of detachment and disinterest. Yet he was also a young man deeply insecure, drawn more to the visceral thrills of the arena than the burdens of governance. He craved adoration and feared appearing weak, a dangerous combination for someone with unchecked power. Section 9. A Reign of Terror or Misunderstood Ruler. Commodus's reign, as history remembers it, was a period of excess, paranoia, and cruelty. He neglected his duties, indulged in extravagant spectacles, and unleashed a reign of terror against perceived enemies. But is this the whole story? Was Commodus simply a tyrant, a product of his upbringing and his own flawed character? Or was he a more complex figure, a ruler ill-equipped for the immense responsibilities thrust upon him? Were his actions those of a madman, or a desperate attempt to secure his own power in a world he never fully understood? The story of Commodus is a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the most carefully laid plans can go awry, and that power, without the guiding hand of wisdom and restraint, can corrupt even the most privileged of souls. Imagine a life perpetually shrouded by destiny. This was Commodus, son of the emperor Marcus Aurelius. He was born into a world of power. He was also born into a world of immense expectation. But what happens when the weight of legacy becomes too heavy to bear? Commodus's story is a captivating blend of ambition, rebellion, and the struggle for power. It's a story that takes us to the heart of the Roman Empire. It's a story that still resonates today. Marcus Aurelius, a stoic philosopher-king, faced constant threats. Germanic tribes were restless. They pressed against the empire's northern borders. For years, Marcus Aurelius campaigned. He fought alongside his legions. He endured harsh conditions. He sought to secure the empire's frontiers. These campaigns hardened the Roman army. They also tested Marcus Aurelius's resolve. Little did he know a more insidious threat was brewing closer to home. Born in 161 AD, Commodus was the apple of his father's eye. He was groomed for power from a young age. Tutors provided him with the finest education. He entered the College of Priests at just 6 years old. This was a significant honor, signifying his importance within Roman society. Despite this privileged upbringing, Commodus yearned for something more. His interests seemed to lie elsewhere. He was drawn to the gladiatorial arena, a passion that would later define his reign. Roman tradition played a crucial role in shaping the emperors. These traditions were not just mere formalities, but were deeply embedded in the cultural and political fabric of ancient Rome. They served as a means to legitimize power and ensure the loyalty of the populace. The congiarium, a lavish public gift of money or food, reinforced the bond between ruler and ruled. This practice was a strategic move by the emperors to gain favor and maintain public order. By distributing wealth, the emperor showcased his generosity and care for the people, which in turn solidified his position and authority. Commodus participated in these ceremonies, endearing himself to the populace. His involvement in such public displays was crucial for his image. It was through these events that he connected with the citizens, portraying himself as a benevolent and approachable leader. At the age of 15, he was bestowed with the title of princeps juventutis, first among the youth. This title was not just an honor but a significant step in his journey towards becoming the emperor. It symbolized his readiness to take on responsibilities and his potential to lead the empire. This marked him as the heir apparent. Being named princeps juventutis was a clear indication of his future role. It was a public declaration that Commodus was the chosen successor, ensuring a smooth transition of power and continuity of the dynasty. These events solidified Commodus's place as the future of Rome. The ceremonies and titles were more than just rituals. They were strategic moves to establish his legitimacy and secure his position. The public celebrations and acknowledgments were essential in building his reputation and authority. However, destiny, as we know, has a way of unraveling even the most carefully laid plans. Despite the meticulous preparations and the grandeur of the ceremonies, the future is always uncertain. The challenges and trials that lay ahead for Commodus were unforeseen, reminding us that power and fate are often unpredictable. In 175 AD, a powerful Roman general named Avidius Cassius rebelled. Declaring himself emperor, Cassius's actions sent shockwaves across the empire. This uprising, sparked by rumors of Marcus Aurelius's death, presented a direct challenge to Commodus's claim to the throne. The rebellion of Avidius Cassius was a pivotal moment. It exposed the vulnerabilities of an empire stretched thin. It also revealed the precarious nature of power. Section 6. A measured response. Marcus Aurelius seeks peace. Marcus Aurelius, known for his stoic composure, chose a path of reconciliation. Instead of rushing to crush the rebellion with overwhelming force, he sought a peaceful resolution. His priority was to avoid further bloodshed. He offered Cassius and his followers amnesty. Unfortunately, Cassius was assassinated by his own troops before a peaceful resolution could be reached. Section 7. Coming of age on the battlefield. Commodus assumes power. The rebellion had a profound impact on Commodus. It was a time of great turmoil and uncertainty, and young Commodus was thrust into a world where he had to quickly learn the harsh realities of leadership and warfare. The rebellion not only tested his resolve but also shaped his character in ways that would define his future reign. In 177 AD, he joined his father on the campaign to quell the remaining unrest in the east. This was not just a mere formality, it was a significant step in his journey towards becoming a ruler. The campaign was grueling and demanded much from those who participated. Commodus, alongside his father, witnessed firsthand the complexities of military strategy and the brutal realities of war. This experience provided him with valuable military exposure. He learned the importance of discipline, the intricacies of battlefield tactics, and the necessity of making swift, decisive actions. The battlefield became his classroom, and every skirmish was a lesson in leadership and resilience. It also cemented his image as a leader in the eyes of the legions. The soldiers saw him not just as the emperor's son, but as a capable and determined leader. His presence on the battlefield inspired confidence and loyalty among the troops, and his actions earned their respect. This marked a turning point in Commodus's life. He began to understand the weight of the responsibility that came with leadership. The experience instilled in him a sense of purpose, and a determination to prove himself worthy of the throne. He was no longer just a young man observing from the sidelines, he was actively shaping his destiny. He was no longer just the emperor's son. The battlefield had transformed him, and he emerged from the shadows of his father's legacy to carve out his own path. The soldiers began to see him as a leader in his own right, someone who could command respect and lead them to victory. He was a military leader. The campaigns he participated in were not just about quelling rebellions, they were about proving his mettle and establishing his authority. Each battle, each decision, and each victory added to his growing reputation as a formidable leader. He was a force to be reckoned with. Commodus's journey from a young, inexperienced observer to a respected military leader was a testament to his resilience and determination. His time on the battlefield was not just about gaining military experience, it was about forging a leader who would leave a lasting impact on the Roman Empire. Section 8. A glimpse into the future, the legacy of Commodus. Commodus's reign would be a stark contrast to his father's. History remembers him not for his wisdom or virtue but for his excesses and cruelty. His fascination with gladiatorial combat grew. He even entered the arena himself, much to the dismay of the Roman elite. His reign marked the beginning of the end for the Pax Romana, a period of unprecedented peace and prosperity for the Roman Empire. Section 9. What if? In the annals of history, there are countless moments that hinge on the decisions of a few individuals. These pivotal points can alter the course of entire civilizations. One such moment revolves around Avidius Cassius, a Roman general whose rebellion could have changed the fate of the Roman Empire. What if Avidius Cassius had never rebelled? This question opens a Pandora's box of possibilities. Cassius, a respected military leader, was declared emperor by his troops in 175 AD, challenging the rule of Marcus Aurelius. His rebellion, though short-lived, had significant implications. Would Commodus have become the emperor history remembers him to be? Commodus, the son of Marcus Aurelius, ascended to the throne at a young age. His reign is often remembered for its decadence and tyranny. But what if the rebellion had never occurred? Would his path have been different? Or would he have been shaped differently by his experiences? The pressures and influences surrounding a young ruler can significantly impact their decisions and character. Without the rebellion, Commodus might have faced different challenges and mentors, potentially altering his legacy. The Roman Empire, under his rule, descended into chaos and bloodshed. Was this destiny? The decline of the Roman Empire is often attributed to a series of poor decisions and mismanagement. Commodus's reign marked the beginning of this decline, but was it inevitable, or was it a series of choices that led him down a dark path? Every decision made by a leader has a ripple effect. Commodus's choices, influenced by his advisors and personal ambitions, steered the empire towards instability. Could different choices have led to a more prosperous era? Commodus's story is a reminder that power, without the guiding hand of wisdom and compassion, can corrupt even the most privileged souls. His reign serves as a stark example of how absolute power can lead to absolute corruption. It serves as a cautionary tale. The lessons from Commodus's reign are timeless, reminding us of the importance of ethical leadership and the dangers of unchecked power. It reminds us that true leadership comes not from wielding power, but from using it responsibly for the benefit of all. The legacy of a leader is defined not by their power, but by their actions and the impact they have on their people. What will you do with the power you possess? The story of Commodus challenges us to reflect on our own use of power and influence. Will we use it for personal gain, or will we strive to make a positive difference in the world around us?